The truth is, I don't have a whole lot of animosity towards people I see in real life. The reason is because when you see someone in real life, you cannot, or at least it's very difficult for you to cognitively dissonance yourself from them as a human being. In this book I read, who knows how long ago, called On Killing by Dave Grossman, the guy talks about how human beings have a natural resistance to kill other human beings. We don't want to do it. We want to avoid it. I think the reason humans are like this is because deep down, fundamentally, humans are tribalistic, and when we see another human being, we don't immediately think competition. We don't immediately think danger. We don't think any of those things. I think on a fundamental human level, the first thing we think when we see another human being is human, okay? Our group, our people. That's what I think humans as a whole do fundamentally. Even if we don't actually consciously think it, we subconsciously think it. At least that's what I think. The reason I bring this up is there are a plethora of bad actors out there, people who are completely ignorant, people who have no idea what they're talking about, who are actively adding to confusion and deception as to what you should do with your life as a human being, right? For example, I remember posting a comment on a YouTube channel I rather like, saying that, I was just pretty upset, and I was just venting. It was a hard day that day, and I was like, man, I have just had it with women. I've done all the things you're supposed to do by the textbooks, right? I go to the gym for 10 years. I built an actually attractive, top-tier physique, an actually, male dimorphic feature physique, not like a bodybuilder, but like an actual man who women find attractive. I go ahead and I take care of my health, and I lose fat, and I keep it off, and I eat a species-appropriate diet to maintain my health, my longevity, my hormones, my resilience, okay? I go ahead and I get sun every day, as often as I'm able to. And there's just hundreds of people who comment on my comment saying, "What's a proper human diet, bro? Bro, you just gotta eat a balanced diet. Eat your legumes and your bread, bro." No, you idiot. Have you ever actually stopped and wondered? Have you ever pondered? Have you ever taken a second just to look at what you put into your fucking mouth? And have you really contemplated that human beings are supposed to be eating that crap? Let's just be completely Barney style basic here, okay? What is your arm made of? It's very simple. It's a very, very simple answer. It's made of water, it's made of protein, it's made of fat, and there's trace amounts of different minerals and items, and there's glucose in there, right? That's how your muscles contract and retract, to my knowledge, okay? That's what your arm's made of. Now, the material itself is primarily protein. Isn't it that interesting that your arm is made of protein? And isn't it also interesting that human beings have been predominantly eating a diet of meat from fatty ruminant animals for the last 2 to 3 million years of our existence? But for some reason, you think you need to eat potatoes and bread to build muscle? Do you hear yourself? In what world, in what absolute crazy land are you able to turn starch, carbs, and sugar into protein? You can't do that. That's why they're not essential. An essential nutrient is something that your body cannot synthesize on its own. It must take it in exogenously, i.e., it must consume it. That's why meat and fat are essential. Carbs are a starvation food that humans developed via our brains through crossbreeding and selective breeding, because we're able to game the system of life, and we're able to go ahead and be very adapted to our environments, which eventually led to us creating agriculture, right, to stave off starvation. But that does not mean that humans are supposed to be eating plants. That's propaganda. And we've been all fed that lie. And the point I'm trying to get at is that don't harbor any malice towards the people that are ignorant, because if they knew the things you know, they probably would change their mind. Even when they say they wouldn't, they probably would. Okay, people are prideful, we're arrogant, we're egotistical, we don't like to change our minds, we like to stomp our feet in the ground and say, no, I'm gonna do it this way, because that's how I've always done it. And I've never taken a second to even consider the possibility that I could be wrong. That's human beings, we're stubborn, I get it. But do not trust people. Do not presume that people just know what they're talking about. Okay, that's how you fail at life. Be inquisitive, be critical, scrutinize what you hear, scrutinize what I say. There's no guarantee what I'm saying is completely right or right at all. I could be dead wrong about everything I say. You know, and it's important. It's important to go ahead and just ask questions. The first thing people do when they're in school is they stop asking questions. When I was in public school years ago, all I could think about was how stressed out I was about these things that I had no talent for whatsoever, and it was just eating me alive. Okay, I was completely and utterly just always anxious and stressed out about all these things that I had no business learning about. And not to mention, on top of that, I was being fed a slop diet full of carbs and sugars, because that's what every kid was fed. And I was made to sit in a classroom 8 hours a day and do nothing. And so you just go along with it, because they designed the system to be easier to live in when you go along with it. But the truth is that if everyone stopped going along with the system, if everyone stopped playing into the hands of these ridiculously uber wealthy people who have access to virtually all of the resources and infrastructure in the world, and they use it to oppress people. Think about it, 1970, the federal minimum wage, 1960, the federal minimum wage was $1 an hour. An ounce of gold was 30 bucks an ounce. You could labor for 30 hours and accrue an actual ounce of gold in 1960. Today, gold is over $5,000 an ounce. Being charitable, the average minimum wage is between $15 and $16 an hour, roughly, give or take. You would have to work upwards of 200 hours a month just to get 1 ounce of gold. And most people are not working that much, and that's not sustainable either. These are just my thoughts. Take them or leave them.